Amateurs Choir. Please welcome them. Thank you very much, music amateurs, for setting both the stage and the tone for this evening's proceedings. And so, good afternoon, family and friends. Welcome to the celebration of the life of Mr. John Reginald Dumas, an honorable citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, and indeed of the world. I want to say a very special welcome to those persons who are joining us online. I invite us all to stand for just a brief moment of reflection in honor of his memory, and this will be followed by an invocation by Archdeacon Philip Isaac. Thank you, and now invite Archdeacon Philip Isaac.
Psalm 133 says, or reads rather, how good and pleasant it is when kindred live together in unity. It is like the precious oil on the head, running down upon the beard of Aaron, running over the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord ordained his blessing, life forevermore. Let us pray. Father God, you existed in the beginning with the Son and the Holy Spirit, and foreordained the lives of every soul. Humanity gives you thanks for our brother, father, friend, who without fanfare made oblation of himself for excellent service to the world. Our gratitude cannot be overrated, but magnified when measured along with his humility and gentleness. May the memory of his stewardship shine as a beacon before those who may encounter his legacy, and may his name be preserved for the generations to come. O Lord, grant to his surviving relatives and close friends the spirit of faith and courage, that they may have strength to meet the days to come with steadfastness and patience. May they rest in the blessed assurance that Jesus is the vehicle to eternal life, and that his love and sacrifice have been freely offered to every soul that has lived and who will ever appear on earth. Our Lord reminds us that he will never turn away anyone who comes to him and believes in him. And may choirs of angels welcome our brother into paradise, and the martyrs welcome him into the heavenly city, even as he moves on to his eternal rest. And I ask this prayer in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I must, however, extend to Reggie's survivors condolences from my family, then from the Tobago region of the Anglican Church, and then from a newly formed relationship that caused memorial plaques to be installed at 2 Anglican churches on the island. His unmeasurable tact, or should I say diplomacy, will never fade from my vista, and may his soul rest in peace.
Thank you, Archdeacon Isaac. Please be seated. He was a diplomat, an author, political analyst, consultant, media commentator, husband, father, brother, friend, and much more. John Reginald Dumas, the eldest of 3 siblings born to Tobagonian parents, Reginald and Adeline Dumas, on April 4th, 1935, has been aptly described as a patriot, a fearless advocate for truth, order, and good governance, a philosophical thinker who sought to educate the population through his writings and utterances. His devotion to public service has been deemed unparalleled, and so too his impact on regional and the international community. In recognition of his life's work in diplomacy and the public service, and for his contributions as a political commentator, Mr. Dumas was presented with an honorary Doctor of Laws degree by the University of the West Indies in 2011. We in Tobago also respected his sharp mind and even sharper wit. We welcomed Reginald Dumas via our various media networks into our homes and into our hearts. His views were always penetrating, certain to provoke thought. His voice of balance and reason will be sorely missed. For me, an entire library has been burned to the ground, and no wonder the tributes keep pouring in. His daughter, Sonia, says of him, he leaves a legacy of integrity and honesty that I hope to follow as long as I am on this planet and perhaps beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, who do we see that he is? This evening, Tobago is honored to host the first edition of an evening of tributes in memory of a man who has spent the last 29 years of his life in service to Tobago, living right here in Tobago, and continuing to comment on issues pertinent to Tobago and to Trinidad and Tobago, I dare say, upon his death. And so this afternoon, our house rules are simple. Please introduce yourself, and if possible, your relation to Mr. Dumas. Mr. Dumas would have turned 89 on April 4th, so we're asking kindly that you limit your contributions to not more than 4 minutes. Please try not to repeat information already shared. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open, and I'd be very happy at first to introduce his siblings, his sisters, Marina and Regina Dumas. Please welcome them. Thank you.
Sorry, not very tall. My older sisters instructed me to speak first. And I have entitled this A Sibling Tribute to Reggie Dumas, a brother unlike others in so many ways. All who are gathered here this evening to pay tribute to and recognize the life and contributions of John Reginald Phelps Dumas were perhaps fortunate enough to engage with him as a colleague or associate of some sort. His daughter, also present today, would have experienced what he was like as a parent, but no one, in times past or present, could know what it was like to have Reggie as a big brother. The Dumas family in the 50s and 60s, when we grew up, was different for many reasons. Not only were we a tiny family of 4, a working mother and 3 young children, whose father was deceased when the youngest was a mere 6 weeks old, but also this working mother, a district nurse, devoid of both parents and siblings, or even in-laws who were parents and siblings of her late husband, knew that she would be the sole breadwinner of her family, since the idea of remarrying was entirely out of the question. She would be faithful to the memory of no one but her deceased husband and father of her children. I think it took us, his sisters, several years before we recognized that this big brother of ours was different from other brothers. For starters, he always seemed to be studying, since whenever he emerged from his room, and he was the only one in the household who had a room all to himself, he would sit in his favorite spot under the rediffusion, younger ones present may not know what that is, with a book open on his lap. We had been programmed by our mother to tiptoe past him, ensuring that he did not raise his head from his book, and because this was done on a fairly regular basis, we became quite adept at being the silent tiptoers. I mean, you didn't want to chance getting the look from a Reggie whose studies had been disturbed. His clique of friends, all from Tunapuna and all attending QRC, included Lloyd Best, Carl Thorpe, Alvin Thompson, and John Nehol. Reggie and Best would later win Island scholarships and attend Cambridge University, where Best studied economics and he studied languages. It was this, coupled with the additional studies in international relations at the Institut des Hautes Études Internationales in Geneva, which largely earned him a place in the federal government when he returned home, and later, when the federation collapsed and the country opted for independence, that easily earned him a career in international relations and diplomacy. Where his sisters were concerned, Reggie was a man of few words. He never tried to advise us on our way forward in life. He never intervened in relationships. But both sisters would attest to the monetary help he extended to us both. To Marina, when she was in England studying and practicing nursing, when he would send her a monthly sum of money to ensure that she was comfortable. And to Regina, when she studied at UWI in the 60s, the monthly allowance never failed to appear. Never mind she lived at home and not on the campus. Anecdotally, last year, I stumbled upon a letter written to me in 1961 when I turned 16 from Reggie. From the content of his letter, it appears that I had made so bold as to ask him to send me the sum of $15 to purchase a pair of shoes for my birthday. I had done well in school that year and had been promised a 16th birthday party by our mother. And responding to my request for money to purchase the shoes, Reggie indicated in his letter to me that he, quote unquote, had not forgotten my birthday as he did the year before. And to prove his good intent, he had already sent our mother a check in which was included, among her monthly sum of money, an additional $10 for me to get to buy a pair of shoes. Not knowing that this had happened, I had asked for $15. In Reggie's letter, therefore, he says he asked that Mama give Regina the additional $5 to be reimbursed to her when he sent her her next allowance. I don't know where that letter came from because it was written about 61 years ago, but it suddenly materialized. But as I read through to the end, I cracked up with laughter and called him and read the part that amused me. Reggie was at the time stationed in Europe and was writing from the British Embassy in Rome, where he said how well made the shoes were there. If you like, he said, you can send me a cutout of your feet, and I will go to a store here and buy you a pair. However, if you do take up my suggestion, I would like to have have back the $10 I already sent you. So typical. Money is not so plentiful with me these days. This sounded so like my brother. I collapsed with laughter. I called him and I read the paragraph out to him, and both of us were laughing helplessly. I think every time I want to feel sad, I will think of and read this letter to cheer me up. So that's what I want to say about my brother. Thank you.
And my contribution now. Regina and I were much younger than Reggie, so as children, he didn't engage us in much conversation. Our mother would remind us that he was our big brother and therefore to be respected. Hence, on his departure to Cambridge University at age 19, we breathed a sigh of relief. On his return 4 years later, we were teenagers, and he treated us differently. He loved listening to jazz, and so we were introduced to Dave Brubeck and other jazz artists, while he tried educating us on the names of different instruments being played. I can't say that we were particularly interested, but we had to listen. We didn't have a choice. In his quiet way, Reggie watched over us as a family, especially our mother. When, as an adult, I needed spinal surgery, which could not be done in Barbados, where I lived, Reggie was able to arrange to have it done in Canada at a substantially reduced rate. Without that surgery, I would have been in a wheelchair today. Regina and I will miss celebrating all our birthdays and Christmas lunches with him. On those days, we always got together. We will miss his presence in our lives. He was always there. Rest in peace, my brother, Elder Reggie.
Thank you very much. After I do this introduction, the floor will literally be open. And so you can come, maybe, show of hand, but please introduce yourself when you come. At this time, I'd like to share the fact that there is a gentleman who is not here. He's out of the country, George Leacock. And George had done a tribute to Mr. Dumas. So I've kindly asked Archdeacon Philip Isaac if he would kindly consent to share it with us, please. Thank you so much.
From the desk of George. My friend, the involved diplomat, Reginald John Dumas. I have noted before that when you cannot remember when you became friends with someone, it is usually a good sign. It could have been Peter Phillip or Robert LeHunt, but more likely my father. If I'm right, Reggie discovered my father's folk museum, the Scarborough Heritage Parlor, and those two instantly bonded. The first lesson from the book of Reggie is, if you have an opinion, share it. And if you can help, do it. I cannot count the number of times that I call Reggie, furious about the action of some public figure to hear. I called him. He could not even explain what he was thinking when he said that, these people. He did not leave the Heritage Parlor alone. He made a recommendation to UNESCO and earned a grant, not without another Reggie lesson. He wrote to UNESCO seeking the services of a museologist to assist with formal issues, and they recommended Vel Lewis. Boy, what a shame. We do not know our local experts. I, of all people, should know that we do not have to look outside for everything. A sizable grant came through, and Reggie supervised every aspect of the upgrades. Reggie arranged visits to the parlor by President Hassan Ali and several others. One visitor was Manohar Ramsaran, who suggested that the old man should be nominated for a national award. Despite refusing said awards for himself on more than one occasion, Reggie took the process with gusto. I learned more than I knew before about my father by having to help him answer Reggie's detailed questions. I am aware that he also supported the recommendation for my national award. When the time came around to fund the radio tambourine idea, working with the banker, we were at the end of the rope. The bank had not said no, but they seemed to have no reason to say yes. Called Reggie. Okay, I will see what I can do. By the next day, he had called Ronald Harford as he told the story. Well, boy, I can't tell you what to do. It's your money. But if you give Tobago a voice, the bank called and was not the final touches, but we were good to go after that. Asking Reggie to be the chairman of the board was a no-brainer, and it was a good thing that we did. He set the corporate governance standards before that was a thing. But there was Reggie's issues. He absolutely refused to accept Are We Radio as a tagline. The next thing, we have a set of people speaking bad English. I was halfway through convincing the chairman that dialect was legitimate language when another director chirped. But it's Trinidad and Tobago. It's so we just talk. Well, boy, start over. He did eventually accept. In the early years as chairman, he had to co-sign every large transaction, like when we decided to purchase a vehicle. I always held the view that we were oversecured, so we were not going to do a mortgage on the vehicle. Just add it to the existing mortgage. The bank agreed. The vehicle was ordered, licensed, and ready for pickup. I agreed to meet Reggie at the bank to sign. I get there moments before he does, and the loan officer opens. Everything here to sign, but Trinidad says you must have to do the mortgage. No, keep the vehicle. I turn on my heel, and I'm back at Radio Tambourine in 50 steps. Forgot Reggie in the bank. The moment I turned the handle on the door, the phone rang. The bank, it's okay, come back and sign for the vehicle. No mortgage, I said. Okay, maybe next week. Oh, shucks. Then Reggie burst through the door. When what happened became clear, us two, the staff, and an unfortunate lady who had come to do a death announcement laughed so hard and so long the lady forgot what she came for. We left the bank in suspense for about 2 weeks. There is no big integrity or small integrity, just integrity. Reggie, lesson number 3. Reggie was never shy about expressing his opinions in the media. For other persons, being the chairman of the board could have easily meant free access, not Reggie. If we asked him, he came. If not asked, and then for a specific date and time. Best of all, he arranged for some interviews with others. Ramesh Lawrence Maharaj on the THA Act, an expert on bolt arrangements on Milshirv, the late Carl Hudson Phillip on Tobago's land title issues, and Sarge from Castara on the legacy of Arthur N.R. Robinson. The jewel in the crown, however, was when he arranged an exclusive sit-down with Kofi Annan, his friend, since their joint entry into diplomatic circles. I memorized the answer to my last question. Inequality will not stop until the world finds a way for poor countries to trade themselves out of debt. I am forever in Reggie's debt for the opportunity. Reggie, and before her parting, his companion Constance, hosted the occasional party, very diplomatic affairs that descend into rapt discussions about domestic and world politics. But Reggie knew about everything and seemingly everybody. In a leadership discussion once, I asked about Rudolph Charles. Turns out that the Hammer was managing Despers on a tour of Africa during the time that Reggie served in Ethiopia. He described Charlo as a consummate leader who commanded respect and did everything he was supposed to do. Anytime I wanted to call someone and was not getting through, I called Reggie. He refused to get a cell phone, so it was his home phone, and he either had another number or somebody that he could call to make a connection. In recent years, my Christmas was not complete without Reggie call to me and a relative over a drink. Let's call it a year in review, a year in preview, and the foundation of my lasting Reggie lesson. Get involved and try to help if you can. You may have to get your hands dirty, but if your integrity is solid, you can depend on that to ensure that your reputation is not blemished. He never chose the safety of staying aloof. Reggie will be missed by all of Radio Tambourine and my own family. Condolences to his family, and thank you for sharing him with us. For the second time this week, I am promising to explain where I developed the habit of seeking the counsel of elders. R.I.P. Reggie.
My name is Maria Dillon Remy.
My name is Petunia King Dillon. And my condolences on behalf of the King's family to the Dumas' family. Many of you may not know that the Dumas' family is my family, very closely related. His grandmother and my grandfather, Buddy King from Mariah, were brothers and sisters. So you know how closely related we are. It's good to be family. And of course, I heard something this afternoon that really, really surprised me, because my father also carried the 4th of April, Ralph King, yes. So I tell you, it's something else. But God bless you all and keep you all and have that strength to go on. He would have wanted you all to be with him in spirit, but have the strength to move on. To his daughter, whom I met for the first time this afternoon, it's a pleasure meeting you, okay? Family must stick together, okay? God bless. Maria.
I thought she was going to say something about her husband, who was Reggie's very good friend. They were part of the Council of Elders together. So I would not have known him because I came back to Tobago in 1997, and I didn't know him before. My memory of him, first memory, was when I was medical director at the hospital. He came one day saying that he was sent by the chief secretary to speak to me about some things related to health. I realized that he was very concerned about the state of health care. And he went to Mr. London, and Mr. London said, come and talk to the medical director. We had a very long and meaningful conversation, at the end of which he said, well, clearly there's nothing more that I can do right now, because at that time we were preparing for the start of the new hospital, and processes were in place for that. So that was my first memory. His interest in what was happening in terms of the care that was delivered in health in Tobago. My second memory was at that same hospital when in December 2003, Kofi Annan visited and his granddaughter got ill. You could imagine my fear, Kofi Annan's granddaughter getting ill in Tobago. But by the grace of God, and thankfully, we were able to hospitalize her. I think she spent overnight, and she was successfully managed. And that we had interaction at that point in time. And the other thing I would say is that when I sat in the Senate, I have had several conversations with him. There was a time when I made a decision that he was not in favor of. And he spoke to my brother, Petunia's husband, Carlos. And Carlos said to me, Maria, Reggie wanted to know why you voted that way. And I was able to explain to him why I did. I said, this is what I did and this is why I did it. He said, well, I will let him know. He never mentioned anything to me, but he clearly complained to Carlos, and Carlos told me about it. But the other times I've had to interact with him was, over the last couple of years, particularly as what was happening in Tobago, 6-6 tie and all of that. We had time to speak. And I would say for the interactions I had with him, what was George already mentioned about there's no big integrity and small integrity, you either have it or you don't. I wish we would understand that as a people, that is how we're supposed to live. That as leaders, our word should be trusted. And that is the kind of man he was. That is what I've learned from him. What he said could be trusted. What he said was said throughout, whether, it had, regardless of where he was saying it, he said it all the time. So I'm thankful for having met him. I'm sorry that he has gone. We will all miss him. I remember I visited him just before he passed. I think it was a Wednesday. And he was there, he said, he was trying to talk, and I said, no, you don't have to speak. And it was just, I just looked at him and was thankful that I had the opportunity to meet such a man. Tobago has lost a stalwart, a man that we are proud of, having been a son of the soil. May his soul rest in peace. And from our family to yours, God bless you.
I just want to just add something here. I remember some years ago, we had a group of us who used to go out to have dinner. It was my husband and I, Alison Sardina and Ken Sardina, Raymond and Gloria Otley. And we always met. And I would say to them, I'm always praying for all of us. And he said to me, Petunia, please continue to pray for me. So may his soul rest in peace. I have been praying for him, and I will pray that he will have eternal rest in God. Amen?
Amen.
Pleasant good evening to each and every one. My name is Edward Henry, the best friend of Mr. Reginald Dumas. If I break down this evening, I'm sorry, but I can't help it. When I get into contact with Mr. Reginald Dumas, I built his house wrong at Bacalet Gardens in the year 1995. I used also to sponsor the over 40 football league in Tobago. So I asked him one day if he could do the feature address to me in the football presentation. He said, of course I will do it. This is how it started. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie don't know what I'm going to say here tonight. But Eddie built my house in 1995. And would you believe in 2007, I'm still talking to Eddie? A woman that had built 2 houses or got up and she started to clap. She said, yes, yes, she's from England. She said, I know what you mean. Mr. Dumas had to ask the lady to sit down, please, because she was very annoying at that time. However, he was not a politician. I never knew him to be a politician. Whether I be the prime minister now or the prime minister before, would have spoken on the television, the next day he will take up the phone, if it's not palatable. He will take up the telephone and say, what is it you spoke the last night? It's foolishness. You must get off the TV and don't talk them nonsense. That's the type of person he was. Another thing, if he have to write a recommendation for you, he will do it. And if you mess up with that recommendation, and the person to whom the recommendation went to, and they will call Mr. Reggie Dumas, he will say, well, he asked for a recommendation. I don't be with the person. So he is quick to write a recommendation for you, but he not putting his head on the block for you at the same time. That's the person I knew him. We were such good friends until every week we will call one another. He said, I'm not hearing from you, what's happening? Or I will call him. That's the sort of relationship that we had. I spoke to him while he was at the hospital, and believe you me, I haven't rested properly since the passing of Mr. Dumas. I was praying for him while he was at the hospital, but sometimes God answers in 3 ways. Yes, no, or wait a while. He was on a group called the Collar Hall Accord concerning the Constitution for Tobago. He asked me to see if I get someone from Moriah or Mason Hall to join the team. After looking around, I said, Mr. Dumas, I haven't seen anybody, you know. He said, Eddie, why don't you join the team? I said, me? He said, yes. Based on our conversation, he find the conversation was at a good level. After I joined the team, we went through Tobago. We came up with a federal system for Tobago. I asked him one day, I said, Mr. Dumas, you asked me to join this team. How am I doing? He said, well, Eddie, if you was doing bad, I would have told you. That was the type of individual that I knew. I have lost a friend, a close friend, a bosom friend. Well, I wouldn't go to the Kofi Annan story because it was already said already. My friends, I worked for his 2 sisters, his siblings. And I think we still have a good relationship that I may be working for his daughter shortly. Right, so my condolences to Sanja and Regina, Miss Regina, and Miss Marina Dumas. Right? So if you notice me, I don't have to write down anything. Kofi Annan had made him an ambassador to Haiti. They were bosom friends. When he came back, he wrote a book on Haiti. His friend wrote a book on the Bocas and the Bulldog. And when you look at the news today, you will see what Haiti has become. He made certain recommendations. Look at what Haiti has become now. So, my friends, I'm happy to be here, but in a sad way. I build up a momentum to come up here. Otherwise, I would have been flooded with tears. He's a person I loved. I have a lot of experience working with him and for him. He gave me a pile of books, so he never stopped studying. Look at his age. The last thing I did major for him, he said, Eddie, the study that I have here is too small. So I want you to build another study on the outside to the side of the house for me. And there is it up to today. So I want to say condolences to the family and friends of each and every one of the close relatives. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. This is what his name, Reginald, meant to me. Reginald, respectful, educated, generous, inspirational, noble, admirable, loyal, and determined. My interaction with Mr. Reginald Dumas began 8 years ago when he first visited my food establishment and his sweet hand at the Esplanade. And since then, rain or shine, Mr. Dumas was present with his calm and cool walk at my booth for his soup and pilau. He loved these meals so much that even during the COVID-19 pandemic, when business was closed, Mr. Dumas journeyed to Canaan for food. What an independent and loyal man he was. Mr. Dumas was a receptacle of knowledge, a man of wisdom, oh, so humble. He would visit my booth, and many times my husband will be there, who is a newspaper lover. So current events were something they loved to chat about. Every visit, Mr. Dumas ensured he imparted some piece of knowledge, and every time I would call my daughters to share. With conviction, I would let them know what I learned, and they would ask, "How are you so sure about that? Mr. Dumas told you that?" And I will say, "Yes, proudly too." They would say, "We knew that." Because everything Mr. Dumas said was the gospel truth. In my book, none could refute anything he said. I am thankful that I got the chance to chat with him while he was hospitalized, even when he maintained a positive and humble attitude. Sometimes, when I didn't get to go to the hospital to visit, I would call him. Sometimes he don't answer. But few minutes after, he would return all my calls, saying, "Yes, Aunt Denise, I miss your calls, so I'm returning it, and we will chat." I would truly miss our conversation, his calm but confident demeanor, his love for my food, and his willingness to share what he knew with me and others. Amidst the sadness, the hope providing in Jehovah's Word, the Bible, provides a source of comfort. So deepest condolences to the entire family, Sonia, his daughter, and his two sisters, Marina and Regina.
Okay, good evening. I'm Afra Raymond. We really miss Reggie. I'm using a collective we because I was going through my books, because I have his books in my study at home. I was going through my books in preparation to make these remarks, and I realized that I had never had them autographed because I had the unstated assumption that I could ask him the next time I saw him. Well, here we are. So we're not going to see him again, and we'd really miss him. I'd make a couple of points, because this is what we're here to honor and to celebrate the life of a dearly beloved brother and a father in the case of Sonia. But this is what we call a Sankofa moment. If we want to go forward properly, we have to understand what happened before. And I want to talk about this constitutional question. I'm not giving a political thing. But in 1971, coming out of Black Power, Dr. Williams appointed the Wooding Commission to look at the Constitution. The Wooding Commission had 10 members. And of course, the Republican Constitution is what we live with now, coming out of the Wooding Commission. 4 of those members were under 40. 4 were under 40. So we think about those days sometimes as the bad old days. And Reg has some powerful things to say about Williams in the 11 Years in Africa book, about that period. But in fact, he made a separate report within the Wooding report. It's 30 pages long, which is absolutely excellent explanation about where we are and how we need to do what we're doing. We have in current constitutional discussions in the country. And we pause, and this is where the Sankofa comes in. And there's a committee recently appointed by Dr. Rowley. The chairman is Barry Sinanan. I think there's like 7 members, and 6 of them are over 60. Okay? The youngest person in the committee is probably 56 or 55. And you need to stop and ask yourself, what is not just the thing, the meaning of the thing? So 50 years after 1971, more or less, we have more university graduates than we've ever had. We have 2 universities in Trinidad, we have foreign education, and we couldn't find anybody in their 30s, and we couldn't find anybody in their 40s to go in there and give their best thoughts to the future of the country. Reginald gave his best thoughts, and his remarks in the Wooding Commission are truly remarkable. Excellent. The other point I wanted to make was that when we had that terrible proposal, and I'm speaking plainly as he would have liked it, when we had that terrible proposal to bring Tobago sandals here, and one of the people who's in the Constitutional Commission now, the one Dr. Rowley appointed, was saying Tobago needs 5 sandals. That's how crazy the whole thing got. He knows who he is. He's looking. He knows who he is. Reg actually stood up and organized an important meeting at Scarborough Public Library to discuss the issues and invited me to speak. And that was a very decisive turning point in the whole campaign about sandals. What I draw from that on the spirit of Sankofa is that, in fact, it is possible to intervene with clarity and with power and with purpose as an educated, edified person without bacchanal. And that was a very distinctive and refreshing thing about dealing with that elder brother. There was no need for bacchanal and confusion. You could actually bring the point to make a change without the confusion and bacchanal. I'm going to leave it there for now, and I'm going to say that, extend my condolences to the family, and say that I'm sorry I didn't get him to sign the books, but here we are. So, thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a bittersweet moment. Let me offer condolences to Sanja, is the name? I'll leave that as that. and Reggie's two sisters from my family, and I could say that my family is Reggie's family. Reggie took me as a son over 24 years ago. When I came back to Tobago in 2000 and started my surgeon into the politics and social issues, I received a call from Reggie one day. I didn't know the man because I left and went to Trinidad in the police service, and I came back from university in 2000 to join the PRDI, and I start my little conversation in the public space, and Reggie heard me probably on Radio Tambourine, and I received a call from this gentleman. He said, "I am Reginald Dumas, and I need to have a conversation with you, young man. Where can I find you? Or you can come to my home." So I said, "Where are you living?" He said, "Baculet." So I went to Reggie's room, and he sat me down. He said, "You are very aggressive intellectually." I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, you are forceful in what you believe in." I said, "I have certain convictions." He said, "Well, my son, I have to teach you diplomacy." And that was the beginning of my relationship with Reggie. So much so that the first thing I did at PRDI was to look at the cost of living differential. And when I wrote up the research paper, I passed it to Reggie to do the first look. He called me. He said, "You are not writing for your university colleagues. You are writing for the average Tobagonian. So you need to get this technical language out of this report." And I did that. I sent it back. He said, "You can now send that on for publication." And Reggie and I and a few others formed a group. Members were the late Jeff Davison, Dr. Jeff Davison, George Bob, Dr. Alvin Thompson, and myself. So we had that group. You will recall that we worked on the constitutional reform proposal in 2012 that went to the parliament. Reggie was the lead person in that. And we bonded there going forward. And he said to me, and something that will stay with me through my life, he said, "Son, do not make any public statement in the public space that you don't have the evidence to defend. It will destroy your integrity and your credibility. If you want to survive in this place, you have to be truthful and you have to have integrity. And you must be fearful in defining and defending what you believe is the truth." So those are some of the things that Reggie instilled in my life. You know, even at this level where I'm working now, if I do something at a very high level for the chief secretary, I will still pass it to Reggie and say, "Look at that for me before I send it off." And he will send it back in 5 minutes and say, "I still have to temper your language, son." So, you know, Reggie has been so much a part of my life and my preparation in this journey. You know, we had this arrangement that every Monday, once per month, we will reach at my home, Reggie, myself, George Bob, Geoff Davison, and we'll just sit there and have conversation for 4 or 5 hours a day, having beverages, coffee. Reggie likes his coffee black, no milk. You see, the blacker the coffee, it recharges batteries. You know, and it was just a fantastic life. You know, being part of that circle, being part of the Reggie experience. And I'm grateful to having been, you know, part of that life and being impacted by a man who is so powerful. Reggie, I know, I don't think there will be another Reginald Dumas. And there can't be another Reginald Dumas. There was only one Reginald Dumas. And I know that not only Trinidad and Tobago have lost a great mind, a great man, a man of integrity, but the region, the world, because he was a global figure. And when Reggie speaks, the world listens. My friend, I will miss you, and may your soul rest in the eternal peace of Almighty God. Thank you.
Pleasant good evening to the bereaved family and all of us who are bereaved at this time. It was a much larger family in this regard. I feel like I'm in a parliament at this time because this is the kind of environment in which you would be addressing a man like, Reggie Dumas under these kind of circumstances. My name is Andre Phillips from Calder Hall, and I have a few words what I would like to say about Reggie Dumas and our relationships in the last 25 years. Let me start by saying that I first came to interact with Reggie Dumas in the mid-1990s. As a matter of fact, a few weeks after the UNC NAR coalition was formed following the elections, the national elections of 1995, November. And at that point in time, I came to read about the writings about Reggie would put forward on the government and so on. And I met him in the airport one day. I think we were going to Trinidad or coming from Trinidad. And he says, Andre, I have to talk to you. I want you to know. I've known about him, but he never approached me before. So he said, I want you to know that you may get a surprise with this arrangement that has been struck for government of Trinidad and Tobago. He said, wait a while, and you will see the surprise. That's a prophet. He's talking. About 6 months later, I read in the news that Mr. Robinson, Arthur Napoleon Raymond Robinson, was going to become the country's president, creating a history, prime minister and president in the same person. So I caught my attention, saying this man is very well connected in ways that, the average person is not aware of. But that was the encounter. I would have interacted with him 1 or 2 times after. But it was in 2001 when the organization I lead, which is Push People United to Save Our Heritage, embarked on a project, the Tobago Icons Project. And in that project scope, we intended to recognize 40 of the leading Tobagonians over the 40 years of independence. So I was charged with the responsibility as the president of the organization to do or seek to do an interview with Reginald Dumas. So I moved up the ladder. I got an invitation to his house in Bacalet, and I went to do the interview with Reggie Dumas on his veranda. I was hoping to see his library, but I was invited to sit in the veranda, and he went through a lot of things over probably about an hour. I said, I know I've used your time, but I would be prepared to suspend at this time. He said, go ahead. We don't have to terminate. Let's talk some more. So I was there for 90 minutes. I felt honored. And I gathered a whole range of activities, a whole range of this man, this Cambridge graduate, who had so bestrode the nation as a colossus and other parts of the world, because I learned a lot about his assignments, his postings in Africa, in the United States, Barbados, and so on. So that is 2001 or early 2002. And I was able now to validate that this man really and truly is perhaps at the very apex of these personalities we are interviewing. And the others who had passed, but were also, their stories were also filed. And we are talking about people like Dodridge Allen, Eugenio Moore, and Eastland Mackenzie, and so on. 40 very illustrious Tobagonians who had shaped the nation of Trinidad and Tobago since independence in 1962. All right, so I want to just touch on two things that would not have been mentioned here because I'm not seeing any of the people who were involved present. But in 2004, I was named to replace Reggie as the chairman of the Tobago Council for Sustainable Development, which was under the Chief Secretary at the time, Orville London. So this Tobago Council for Sustainable Development was looking at all things pertaining to sustainability in Trinidad and Tobago, or in Tobago. And Reggie was demitting the position. And I was asked, I got a call from Mr. London asking him if I would take over the position of chairman of the Tobago Council for Sustainable Development. Well, I was a little confused. I said, you know, you had Mr. Reggie Dumas in this position. I mean, I am a consultant out there in the management consultant in the field, but I can't see myself walking in the shoes of Mr. Reggie Dumas. So, Mr. London said, you would accept the position. If you will, you start. That's sometime in 2004. And I said, okay, I would contact Reggie and have a chat with him about the projects he was at least working on at the time he demitted. And then I would find myself trying to position those programs, because the only thing is I decided I wanted to use a project cycle approach going forward with the program. So I had the opportunity to relate to Reggie, and in that period, probably about 6 months thereabouts, I was able to rise or elevate to the level of colleague, because he would call me colleague. So I climbed the ladder another rung. And the other opportunity, well, we remained in touch. He would call me from time to time, give me information he thought was pertinent for the council to look at. And then 2006, there was an issue that I took up while I was serving as chairman, and that was to remove all the arrangements pertaining to the foreign ownership of lands in Tobago. And so I did a case, I did some research, I had one or two assistants with me, and while I was there in the office of the Chief Secretary as Tobago Council Chairman, I presented my findings to the Chief Secretary. And I said, Chief Secretary, there is a clause in the Ministry of Finance Act. The Ministry of Finance has the authority to name or determine any part of Trinidad and Tobago as the place that could be, once again, put under license. So I determined that that place was Tobago because we were fighting a Tobago cause. I did not get a feedback from the Chief Secretary at the time. He had to ponder the findings. So I took to the papers, I called a colleague in The Guardian, and I wrote a dissertation on what was happening with Tobago and the lands and so on. And it was published in the Sunday Guardian. When it was published, I got a call from Reggie. And Reggie said to me, Andre, you have completed that study. What kind of sources did you use? How did you verify it? And he was so amazed, and you got it in the papers. He says, you're going to get a lot of calls. I said, all right. He said, I'll join you. If you show me the details, I will join you, and we can work on a program to get more traction for this. I was able to see the militant Reginald Dumas at work. within 2 months or maybe 1 month, we were able to send a letter penned. He said, get 4 people. And we would do a letter and put our signature state and send it to the Prime Minister. That is what was done. I could call most of the other people were George Bubb, Edward Jones, Margaret Godson Phillips, and there was somebody else, Otto Isaac, and Reginald and myself. I say, Reggie put his signature on the document alongside my name. I'm moving up. Anyway, so we sent that in to the office of the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister responded to Reggie, saying I would want to look at it with greater detail. By this time, the Tobago House of Assembly had gone on to make an executive council note and then debate the motion in the House. So that was done in the period while we were waiting on feedback from Mr. Manning. So I came up with the idea, let's go to the streets. Let's not leave this here. Let's take to the streets and get some persons to sign the petition that this has to stop. We have to go and put Tobago under license. So I shared it with Reggie and the rest of the team, and we went out. Well, Reggie wasn't going anywhere. He was in his home, but he will make calls to different people. He said, take it to the so-and-so and get it signed. Take it to so-and-so and get it. And we garnered 4,033 signatures in the space of 3 days or 4 days. It was a massive move, and that was enough validation for me and for all of us in the committee. The next thing is, by February, they enacted the provision, and since that time, Tobago is not a place where the foreigners could actually do. But it showed the commitment of Reggie Dumas, and I looked and learned a lot from him in terms of what he felt were the main purposes of people of a little island. We call it island of 77,000 acres, what they want to do with this place, right? And then there was another time, the last one I would make reference to is the fact that in 2009, I journeyed into politics, the foray. I had a foray into the politics, and in 2009, I stood as an independent candidate. So Reggie and I were communicating from time to time, but I said to Reggie, well, you know, I've chosen this route to go as an independent, and Reggie would tell me on his veranda, Andre, you know, you're going to lose your deposit. Straight off. There's no gainsaying. I tell you, there's no gainsaying. You are going to lose your deposit. But don't give up. You go into that fight because you're subject, because he was in Transparency International. And he was very akin to the kind of campaign that I and my small team had put together. It was called Advocacy for Good Governance. So he was like a father to me in that time, checking to see what I would have done, how I was going, and reminding me to push the agenda of unjust enrichment is not happening. Do not support unjust enrichment in the political space. So that kind of cemented the arrangement. Other times I would reach out to Reggie. I became a columnist, a Sunday columnist at first, and then a general columnist in the Tobago News for four years. I wrote in that paper, 2012, November. And my first few articles, I had to send them to Reggie. He was a proofreader. So I am very grateful for the kind of opportunities I had to work with this colossus. And I would leave by saying the country's media source, the country's media is poorer for the demise of this man at this time. Newsday, Express, and Guardian. As a matter of fact, I was thinking the other day, Reggie was the Google, the first Google before we reached Google, because media people would go to him to get their stories, his view, and that is it. They take his view and print it with little or no change to his utterances. So I know, as I wrote in a Facebook post sometime last week, we have lost a colossus. He's a colossal loss to the national intellect. I thank you, and I would wait to hear about the arrangements for the funeral.
Well, there's no need to introduce myself again. This is on behalf of one of Reggie's nieces, who is also my daughter, who sent this tribute. Thinking of Uncle Reggie is like remembering scenes of a play. Me at 7 or 8 years old visiting Canada when he was the High Commissioner. My memories revolve around feeling warm in his home and the helper Brenda, who made an amazing chocolate cake. I remember him taking me to dinner parties and leading me around to introduce me to and talk to his guests. Then the tense teenage years where he would sit, my cousin and I, in Granny's kitchen to counsel us on our subpar performance at school. I keep trying to condense what he represented to me during that phase. He represented punishment, yes, but more importantly, Uncle Reggie represented a standard for us that we were not expected to fall below. Uncle Reggie was a storyteller, and this is something that I will hold on to, his stories. I appreciated those more in recent years. He was a walking history book, and I felt deeply proud when I would listen to him tell these stories. As I have gotten older, I am realizing that someone can be in your life a whole lifetime, and if you don't take the time to ask questions, you can miss how amazing that story is. I am glad that I got to know that side of him some more as we got older. Uncle Reggie, you moved from being the source of connection that I at times resented in my youth to my very interesting uncle, who was also an amazing storyteller. And that is definitely what I will miss, your storytelling. Your mind, it hurts to know that I won't get to hear those stories anymore. We teased him mercilessly about his refusal to use WhatsApp on his cell phone. In the last couple of years, we started communicating by email because, like I said, the stories fascinated me. And he took some pleasure and time in responding and in sending detailed and long emails, which could only be called condensed history lessons. Now I am glad that he preferred email because I have those to keep. My uncle created an amazing life story. I think if we were to start to unravel all of the things he did in these 88 years, we would be shocked by the immensity of it. So thank you, Uncle Reggie, for setting a standard. The standard. Thank you for loving stories in a way that few others do, and for being so committed to researching them and telling them. Thank you for your commitment to gathering our family stories and detailing a legacy that we would otherwise have been lost. Those stories help to answer some of my questions about who I am and who we are, and I would not have had that were it not for you. You were a one-of-a-kind man, and I mean that fully. Rest well, Uncle Reggie, you have earned it. I love you, Danny.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all the contributors thus far. But at this time, I just invite us to continue to relax, to the soothing songs, this time of the violin. And there'd be a violin piece done by the very talented Carol Warner. Please welcome Carol. And after Carol, we will start. We'll start with Brother B, Jerry McFarlane, Mervyn O'Neill, and we continue. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Dumas was a dear friend of my father, Lincoln Warner, and I was fortunate to study under his daughter, Sonia, at the University of Trinidad and Tobago. So I am bringing tribute on behalf of my family.
Good evening, everyone, and let me extend my deepest condolences to the family of Mr. Our good friend. And Tobago would have lost, and what was spoken to, treating with the idea of his use of his knowledge when it comes to what's wrong with me? Current affairs and the issues that he's not afraid to confront. And I got to know Mr. Reginald Dumas when I was on 91.9 on radio. One morning, I was about to get off the air and a phone call came. And the person who received the call said to me, Brother B, Mr. Reginald Dumas wants to speak to you. I was taken aback. I wasn't sure who this individual was. And I took the call. He said, Brother B, you don't know me, but I listen to you from time to time. And I heard you had a series of going around Tobago to speak with the people who can impact a change in Tobago. And that series include people like Hochoy Charles, Orville London, Dr. Winston Murray. He was not Prime Minister yet, Dr. Keith Rowley. And all of those individuals, I've had the privilege of having a conversation about how Tobago can be better. So he called me and he said, I hear that you're having that conversation and you invite me? No, I was a bit taken aback. And for many, we never got to get that conversation on radio. However, flip forward to me moving to television. Mr. Reginald Dumas would call me privately to talk to me about issues that he thinks that I should raise. People don't know that. I don't share that. I've never shared that before. And would ask my opinion based on what he heard from me. For example, I might raise an issue that he felt that maybe needs further expanding on and so on. And he would say to me, what are your thoughts? I remember one of the latest conversations we had was Audio Gate, and of course he gave his view, and he felt very strongly about what action should be taken. And we would have the conversations about the issues, and he was very clear in his mind and would ask me, what do I think? And I've said, you are the scholar. I mean, you are the diplomat. And my opinion really, he said, no. Don't undervalue what you do. And I came back into my shell and I recognized that, here are people of his ilk, let me give him that, value, what comes from this individual, an individual that, feels strongly about Tobago, even though my opinion shouldn't matter based on the show that I do and so on. But he was clear in his mind that this fella had something to offer. Brother B, we listen to you. And he encouraged me to be strong and be resolute and be clear about whatever I put out there and be confident and deliver it. And, his encouragement really did impact me. When I heard of his death, I was taken aback because I felt that we are losing some of Tobago's prominent citizens. And if we want to go back to, of course, we lost Hochoy Charles, we lost Deuce, and of course I put them in that category. Before that we lost Dr. Murray, and now Mr. Reginald Dumas. So we are losing our great sons, and we have to ask, where do we go from here? But I am confident that Tobago will do its part. I see Dr. James here, Vanessa James, and I know that they were very good friends as well. And of course, Mr. Pigott, who probably is upset with me because of certain actions that I didn't take, maybe or not. But they had formed an organization called the Elders, Tobago Elders, and so on. Called me and asked me, what do I think? And so we weren't friends. I wasn't claiming as a friend, but he recognized that what I put out has value, and he encouraged me, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Jerry McFarlane, and I want to, as usual, express my deep condolences to the bereaved daughter, sister. I'm not seeing Regina, but Regina and I have a common friend who always asks for each other. But hope that God gives you all the strength to cope with this, the passing of such a legend. And I was talking to some of my colleagues earlier yesterday, and we were saying that, you know, Reggie Dumas came from an era where there were a few Tobagonians that were actually, I don't want to say at the commanding heights of the country's development, but people like Eugenio Moore, people like Doddridge Allen, many of you may be too young to remember these names and the role these people played in the development of this Twin Island Republic. Reggie Dumas also was a much younger guy than those guys. William Dumas and many others. I'm talking about the police commissioner Hilton Guy, former commissioner of police. You know, so he joined a group of persons. Most of them, well, all of them I named have passed, you know, but we all proud of the contribution that these others and Reggie Dumas himself has made, not only to Tobago's development, not only to Trinidad and Tobago's development, but to the development of the wider Caribbean. His representation as an ambassador, as a diplomat, is exceptional, and I may dare say second to none. When you look at his book, I think that was what, the 12 endearing years or something like that, of dissidence and discipline, gives you an idea of the man, his integrity, his character, how he was so trusted, and the scholarly ability of the man. You know, one of the things that, simple things, and get to the other things quickly. He call me one day and tell me, Jerry boy, there's this piano that I found out is in this Methodist or Moravian church, I think, at Spring Garden, an old piano. And he said he went and looked at the thing and he got information that the piano must be about 2 centuries old. And he got somebody to come here and look at this piano and tell them to look to somewhere to the back of the piano and you'll see the date of the manufacturing of this piano. Reggie did all of that and confirmed that the piano was at that time was about 200 years old. And people were saying in different parts of the world, this thing could be repaired and should be held in a special place. A museum is a masterpiece. You know, and he was so excited about this thing. You know, anyway, I think some part of it was pursued and other people was to take it to another level to have it preserved and so on. But I'm not too sure what happened. In another instance in which he was the ambassador, not ambassador as somebody said, but special advisor to Kofi Annan. And he was to Haiti. And Kofi Annan was his friend. He told me about Kofi Annan even before Kofi Annan became the UN Secretary General. I can't remember whether he met him in the diplomatic circles or when he was at Cambridge. But he and Kofi Annan know each other quite well for a long time. So Kofi made him ambassador. Not ambassador, but special advisor to the UN, to Kofi, with respect to Haiti. Haiti just had a disaster and was going through a lot of turmoil, political and otherwise, but they had a serious earthquake. And I congratulated him when I got the news, because I told him I not too long came back from Haiti, just before the earthquake, you know, so I've had an idea what the struggles were. And now with the earthquake, how it compounded the situation, I say your task will not be an easy one. So he did the thing, and when he came back, you know, he discussed the whole thing with me. And I went back to see what it was afterwards. In another program, I had a program, a conference or something in Haiti again. And I was impressed. And one of the persons who was in charge of the army or something, the international army that was in the space, he died as a result of the earthquake as well. But the big thing, what I want to bring to you, Many ambassadors or consultants will go to a country to do a specific task or a job. When they are paid, that finished with, they go on to some other thing. Reggie Dumas continued his work as an ambassador, was a patriot to the people of Haiti by raising personal funds to restore 3 schools, built one and restored 2 others that was damaged by the earthquake. So he didn't leave the country and go away. He raised funds, came back here after his assignment, raised funds to build 2 schools and refurbish 1, I think. And in addition to that, he paid the principal and the head teacher and the teachers of the school in order that the children don't have to pay to go to school. That was a common thing in Haiti. I realized that when I went there. Children, little babies, preschool, whoever school they're going to, you have to pay. And I just remember how precious we are in this country. So blessed, to having all these things just taken for granted. So he did that, and it was quite successful. And he raised funds, and that went on for about 3 years until all the money ran out. And he was telling me this story, how he had to go back and tell them, well, he have no more money. He can't raise any more funding. This project, he was handing it over to some other persons to continue. But he knew it was a difficult task. That is the nature of the man. I must tell you also how I met him. I not met him really. He first contacted me on the phone. But before that, A.N.R. Robinson was Prime Minister. I was a secretary in the THA, responsible for the environment and I think state lands, something else. But I got a call from my secretary and tell me that Mr. McFarlane, Mr. Dumas is on the phone to you. It seems urgent. So I take up the phone and I think it's René Dumas, my good friend. So I heard this very distinguished voice at the other end. I almost was shocked when a person tell me it's Reggie Dumas. Robinson always tell us, especially we the youngcomers in the assembly, when we have any issues, especially pertaining to the governance or even politics or the public service in particular, let us contact people like Reggie Dumas. So he came back in 1988 and was head of the public service and PS to the Prime Minister. So I was very shocked, and he was telling me how the Prime Minister said that he was I should be available and nobody's calling him and so on, so he's going to make the first call. And what he really called me to tell me is that they have this property at Coffee River, and he really wants some assistance in getting the road done because Regina or somebody wanted to put up some tourism facility on the island. I went and I looked at the place and so on, and I see where they had to pass to go to this, to establish this facility. And I was really taken aback. I gave him the assurance that we will look at it and see what we could do. The task was a huge task, I must admit. And it wasn't just something for me as Secretary for Agriculture to do or Environment. So I had to contact the Secretary for Works, and we had to find a way to carve out this mountain and go down close to the river and then come back up, to where this site would be. Anyway, it was eventually done. It took some time, and that was done. But we remained in contact since then. And one day after the facility was established, government changed, and he calls me proudly to say, Jerry boy, you know what is happening? Prime Minister Manning decided to take his cabinet meetings to different parts of the country at the time. And he have decided that one of his cabinet meetings in Tobago will be held at the Coffee River Retreat. This place is on the edge of the rainforest, mosquitoes, all the things you could think about, birds, wildlife, and so on. Prime Minister decided that he have any cabinet meeting. So I called and find out how it went and so on, and I was told that everything went beautiful. And the Prime Minister was impressed, as if, what he said, the first Prime Minister to ever have a cabinet meeting in the oldest rainforest in the Western Hemisphere. That was his big thing. So the Reggie relationship continues with me. And I think that I working at Channel 5, or spent a number of years at Channel 5. In the early days, I think I had more interviews with Reggie Dumas than any other person, because we have discussed almost anything. We became so close that when there are issues, I was known to expose people at all levels if they're not doing right, and praise them to the hilt if they're doing something good. But there was one or two issues which I dare not treat as how I would like to be treated. And Reggie came to mind, and when I called Reggie and discussed one of those issues, pertinent, serious issue, I raised it with Reggie. Reggie said, what the hell is this, boy? And he said, you're going to deal with it. Reggie spoke to the people who were involved in this exercise and warned them and threatened them to bring this disgusting behavior to a halt. So said, so done. And me, if you tell them is I make the complaint to him, some of them used to watch me and pass me with bad eye and so on. But that is no problem. The important thing, he didn't just sit down on it. He made an effort to do something about it. That's the nature of the man. He didn't just sit down and complain and belabor the thing. Oh God, what are we going to do? Reggie's a man to find solutions. So I am pleased to be associated with such a person. And I remember one day that he called me. I always encourage him to write. And one time I had a problem with having all my documents not well organized. So I said, well, I want to see how you disorganize your thing and so on. And Reggie gave me a peep of this place in Bacolet, where he have his study and library. And I was so impressed when he tell me these things dating back to 1962, documents dated with his appointment as ambassador, all these things this man had, well recorded, well placed, so that they could be accessed easily. Any document I want, the other day I had asked him for his, the minority report of the Constitution Committee headed by Sir Hugh Woodin. His minority report, I think some previous person spoke about it. Reggie had a minority report. He didn't agree with some of the things, so he decided to have a minority report. With the great Sir Hugh Woodin, against his wishes, Reggie told me he would get it for me. I don't think he eventually got it, but he said he had it. I never really collected it. But that is a document that could reflect how the man think, the man's integrity, his steadfastness, his scholarly conduct, and so on. And in closing, people, I know that it'd be difficult to find anybody in this space, Trinidad and Tobago, to fill the shoes of Reggie Dumas. But his legacy remains, people. His legacy and his conduct and his character and his enthusiasm for getting things done remain as a good example for all of us that we must do better. That we must not just sit back and allow the place to burn down, as you will say. We just have to do better. We have to encourage a kind of Reggie Dumas culture in this place. And in the early days, one of the big peeves that I had, and I still have it now, is the issue of the public service. And he will tell me all the papers he wrote and all the different things, and the public service is a difficult one to deal with, But people, even if we start from the public service itself, from the public servants themselves, you are the people who I think may be most equipped to bring about the change that we need in how we provide services to the public. Tobago, particularly, the public service need much more to be done. And we can't just sit back and continue to belabor that. That was one of Reggie's peevish issues, one of my peevish issues up to today. Every discussion I have with a current assemblyman, I talk about that and they talk about it as well. They don't want to hold the bull by the horns, because you have, of course, the Public Service Commission. But I think if it's one thing we can do in this place, one thing is to be very forthright, diligent, and to be a kind of people that we are so accountable to do the thing that is right. That is what the public service is missing. And if the public service can't help in reorganizing service to the public, what kind of public we will have? And this is my concern. Let us use all Reggie's energies and work and study and attitude to bring about change in the public service, which he was head of for a certain period of time in our history. So folks, we have more to do, and I encourage all the scholars and all the determined and ambitious persons who want leadership positions in our communities. Let's start there. Let us rise to the occasion and try to reach some of the standards set by Reggie Dumas, somebody who we just can't forget. And finally, we should make a special effort on this island. Don't just leave it to the politicians or maybe friends of Reggie. But something must be done to chronicle all the work and all his information in his library and his study to do something. I made a similar call when Ho Choi Charles died, that maybe we should offer a scholarship, a PhD scholarship, to some Tobagonians who want to study true governance and history or diplomacy or international relations. Take all Reggie's work and put it into chronological order so that students and people coming after us will learn and benefit from the extent of work done by Reginald Dumas. I thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, at this time I'm really craving your indulgence to please respect the time frame that we have given you. We have a certain amount of time to be in this space, and so we're kindly asking that your time has now been whittled down to 2.5 minutes. The other thing I would like to say, reluctantly, is the fact that there are a number of persons who had been invited to come, and some of these persons have not yet had an opportunity to come. So at this time, I'm just going to ask Mervyn O'Neill, a cousin, and I know that Mr. Rodney Pigott shared with me that Dr. Mack wanted to say a few words, so that will happen, and then I will ask Mr. Rodney Pigott to also give his tribute at the time. And yes, Dr. Vanis James, I know that you're here, and your name is also down, sir. All right, so thank you very much, and I'm kindly asking, it is difficult, but we must do it. Thank you so much.
Good evening, and thank you for staying with us. We can only select. We cannot exhaust what can and needs to be said in tribute to Reggie. Now, Archimedes said, "Give me the right place to stand, and I shall move the world." Reggie took the place that was given to him and has continued to move the world since. In Archimedes' sense, we are talking of levers and fulcrums, force movements. In Reggie's case, we are speaking of humanity, and Reggie as such a momentous force. Note, for example, that members of our CARICOM community at this very moment should be poring over his book, An Encounter with Haiti, also subtitled Notes of a Special Advisor. Yes, Reggie was appointed special advisor to Kofi Annan, and so forth and so forth. On every page of this book, Reggie is speaking as though he is here today. What brilliance. Now, if you're getting the impression that I am holding Reggie in the present and not in the past, that's what I am doing, and that's what needs to be done. But to really better grasp what we would need to delve into things like temporal time and celestial concepts of time. Things, and let me put Reggie in his class, things that people such as the Schrödingers and the Einsteins and others concern themselves with. Suffice it to say that Reggie has and will engage us for as long as we can imagine. The 16th/17th century cleric and poet John Donne noted that when someone transitions, it is not a page torn from the book, but a translation to better language. In Reggie's case, we see many metaphoric sides to John Donne's translation to better language. Reggie has outlined and left many tasks for each one of us to take part in and do our translations ourselves in our own way. This is how Reggie's perpetual beseechment is so well documented. And from our understanding, current understanding, yes, Nallis has made room and plans to place his work in the Reggie corner of the Nallis Library. And note, as previously mentioned, CARICOM needs to engage itself with Reggie's work in order to make some translations there in Haiti. Now a bit closer to home, here in Tobago. As chairman of the Tobago Council of Elders, Reggie has been guiding us in planning a conference on Tobago, which is now tentatively entitled Tobago, the Sankofa Experience, Looking Back to Go Forward. Going forward, members of the conference planning committee have agreed to dedicate that conference on Tobago to Reggie. Therefore, in the coming months, whenever and however you encounter this topic of a conference on Tobago, please make the connection with Reggie. He was guiding us, coaching us, and all the rest. In terms of other innovative thinking and work, under what is called a gene pool modality heading, which spans a wide spectrum from preschool education through the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, and onto what we call a case for reparation for Tobago, Reggie has been guiding and motivating us. There is connectivity and all those other things that we can add here, but in conjunction with a couple of us, Reggie has placed a letter before the United Nations under the heading Knowledge of Self. It is sitting there, and as someone said, we have work to do. Reggie has left us work to do, and let us get on with the work. I opened Thank you. I opened with saying we can only select, we cannot exhaust. So in closing, here is a Reggie story. Out of gratitude to the Tobago Anglican Church for placing 2 plaques on their walls in honor of Norman MacNeil, an ancestor born into enslavement here on Tobago, and an ancestor common to Reggie, Sonia, Marina, Regina, myself, and several others. Reggie found his way to a place in Trinidad that sells church artifacts and so forth. And out of his pocket, applying several $1,000s, he purchased a ciborium and a thurible and brought them back and gave it to our secretary for handing over to the Anglican churches. And so I close in saying, whenever you see a ciborium raised or a thurible swung, think of Reggie. He's there somewhere. I thank you very much.
Greetings, family. I have Dr. Mack, who is in the United States, who wanted to say a few words, and so we're going to attempt to give her a call via WhatsApp and hope that it comes across as it should.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to also ask you to please help yourself. There's some snacks at the back there. And at the very end of this presentation, there will be some music, some more music, because that's the thing. And there will also be drinks there for you. So please, just know that that is there for you. And we don't want you to just run away without getting some kind of refreshment. So thank you.
All right. You're on, Dr. Mack.
Yes, Rodney, thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm waiting on Sonia to finish up in my. Yeah. Hello?
No, you go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Mark. You're on.
Good evening, everyone. As Rodney said, I am in the United States of America, and I have something is wrong. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Aren't you hearing me?
Yes, we are, Dr. Mark. Go ahead.
Yes, I have been following the service from the very beginning, and I've been listening very attentively. I have no intention of repeating anything that anyone has said. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Dr. Mark. You're good. Keep talking.
I just want everyone to know that I am one of Reggie's very good friends. I am one of the females who used to be in the meeting at Reggie's home. It seems as though all the men are there talking about their country and Kofi Annan and Haiti and so on. But Marina knows that I would give her a message to give to Reggie all the time. I even instructed her to take away his cell phone. Whoever gave him a phone there, I wouldn't make my Reggie plead. And to tell my Reggie hello and hi and all sorts of things. I also want to tell you all that we used to have fun in our meetings. We used to end with a joke. We used to laugh and people would believe that Reggie was all stiff and only politics and development and all sorts of things. But we used to have a lot of fun. So I want to tell you that one of the jokes that I would end with whenever we had our meeting, there was this man who had a lot of money. And he told his wife that when he died, he wants her to put all his money in a pan and put it in his casket. So, said, so done. And when the body was leaving, her friend saw the pan in the casket and said to her, you mean you really listen to that husband of yours and put all that money in that pan and put it in the casket? And she said, but you know that was what he said to do. So I did put it in the casket, but I wrote him a check. Good night, everyone. My condolences to Marina and Regina and Sonia. And Sonia, we have a promise that we kept, that we made with Reggie, and we'll keep it. And I'm talking about Pennycam and Marina. It's a secret, so she could tell you in your ears after. Rest in peace, my dear friend Reginald. Love you, love you, love you. And you just remember all the good times that all of us had at your home. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Rest in eternal peace.
Okay, so that was Dr. Mark from the States. And the meeting she was talking about was the Council of Elder meetings that we would have, every Thursday, I think, at Reggie's Place. When I was listening to everyone, again, my name is Rodney Piggott. When I was listening to everyone speak, especially the men, Andre and so forth, I got to thinking that Reggie's Place in Bacalet Gardens was much like the principal's office, because everybody's being called to Reginald's Place to get this talk. And therein lies my conversation. I'm the least of you, because I knew him the least. I just met him in 2017 when I returned home in 2016. And I moved into a place right next to him, Elder Keston McCletchy. And I moved into a home there, and in many conversations I had with Elder McCletchy, somehow or another, this gentleman next door that I had no idea who he was, demanded that Keston bring me to him. to his home there right next door so we could have a chat. And we had a very, very, very long chat. I'm talking up to about 2 hours. Naturally, of course, I was right next door, so after having a couple sips on some cognac, while he sipped on some whiskey or something like that, our conversations just went on and on and on. And from then on, we clicked, we connected, and I saw Reggie as a warrior scholar. I had just left the United States where I was at the feet of many elders, so I left an environment, a Pan-African environment, where we were concerned with reparations and freeing the African mind and so forth, African education for the children and so forth. So in having conversations with Reggie, this is where our conversations would usually go. And I call him a warrior scholar, not because he liked to fight, but because as a scholar, he was a change agent. Some people get their degrees in order to wear it on their shoulders and look down on others. And I've got this and I've got that, and they make a lot of money with their degrees. A warrior scholar like Reggie, he gets that education in order to help liberate others, to liberate the African mind. And this is what he was concerned about. We got involved with the elders. We formed the Elder Council, and he was championing that cause. And one of the things that we were attempting to do, and we will still be attempting to do, is to ensure that every elder in Tobago, at the very least, recognize themselves as elders, not as old people, not as pensioners, not as retirees, but as elders, full stop. Not elderly, because when you say the word elderly, you mutate that term elder. What you're saying is you have some qualities of an elder, but you're not quite there. And usually the qualities that we're thinking about when we call someone elderly is one, their age, and two, they have some sort of infirmity. They can't get around. Maybe they're in a wheelchair, and things of that nature. So we kind of look down on them with that terminology. We must refer to our elders as elders. There is power in that word. And let us not mutate the word. We don't say youthly. We don't say childly. We don't say adultly. Let us not say elderly. Let's refer to them as elders and give them that respect. So I want to say to the family again, my condolences. You have lost a brother. You've lost a father. We have lost an elder. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. It's interesting that I'm speaking after Rodney, as though it was arranged. You know, a lot of accolades have been given today to our great man, Reginald Dumas. And, you know, after hearing all these speakers, I'm wondering probably what is more for me to say. I'm here to talk about Reggie from the perspective of him being my neighbor. And Rodney mentioned it. It was my husband who took him across to Reggie, and that was the beginning of their relationship. Now, so I bring greetings and condolences to Sonia and the family on behalf of the McCletchy family. I'm talking here from the perspective of a neighbor. What do we want of a neighbor? or from a neighbor? What do we need? Reginald Dumas was our neighbor for at least over 25 years. We got to know this great man. He was a good neighbor, understanding, entertaining, and he possessed a great humor, a great, great sense of humor. We would visit each other's homes, especially when there was a family occasion. Of course, the visits to his home was much more frequent because he wanted to talk, always wanted to talk. Let's come over, let's chat, let's talk. And you heard about it from all the speakers who talk about how he liked to talk. He invited people in the home, he liked to talk, or from all different topics. He was versed and he knew everything. And most of us have seen him on television. We have listened to his numerous discourses on radio. And we also interacted with him on a professional level. But I had the opportunity of seeing him in his backyard. Short pants, tall boots, a cutlass in his hand, pruning and cutting his plants. Although I never saw him with a hoe, but he always with his cutlass, never with a hoe, but I saw him with his cutlass and his little things cleaning his plants around the house. Now, during those times, we would exchange greetings and talk a little on the happenings in TNT. You always want to know what's going on, what you hear, and there was always be a chuckle. Despite, no matter how serious the conversation was, Reggie always inject a sense of humor somewhere, and it ends up with a laugh, a chuckle, and we go about our way. I heard tonight lots of you mention how influential he was. Everybody respected Reggie. Reggie got things done. I can attest to that. Where we live in Bacalet, there's a bridge, like big, it's wide, but there are some trees on either side of that bridge. And over the years, it formed something like a canopy. And I am petrified of it, especially when rain falls or when the wind blows strongly. It is kind of ominous, threatening. You don't feel comfortable. I tell my daughter, when you see you reach there, drive fast, because we don't know what could happen, especially when the wind blows heavily. And one day I called Reggie and I said, Reggie, you don't find, what you think about that little dark area there? Look at the trees, how they coming close, thick. I'm scared of it. This thing may be my nemesis. And he said, Marva girl, we'll see what we could do. I'll see what I could do. In the night, he called me. The same night, we talked about it in the morning. And in the evening, in the night, he called. He said, I spoke to the general manager. No, we wondered, who is responsible for that? Is it Tiantec? Is it Works? He said, I think probably Tiantec. However, I'll see what I can do. He always, with that, I'll see what I can do. And he did something. In the night, he called me and he said, I spoke to the general manager, Trinidad, of course, and he promised to do something. Let's see. Within 4 days, I was going out and I saw a fleet of Tiantec trucks. And that is to tell you, the work was done. The trucks with the big trays or the buckets, and everybody busy, and we got that place cut and cleared. You can see right up, you feel safe, and that is the man Reggie is. Reggie was. Reggie knew how to get things done. He was influential, People respected him. And this is something that we can hold dear. Between 5:30 and 6 o'clock every morning, I will look across and Reggie's window would be open. He gets up around that time. And I know that Reggie's up. Reggie's awake, probably reading, doing something. He gets up early. They signal that, of course, Reggie is awake. Now, those windows are closed. The windows are closed. And the house is in our face. The house is in my face. When I look across, because it's just a fence that divides us, when I look across, what stares back at me? Quietude, stillness. Reggie was an extraordinary man. But memories of this great guy who resided there will forever etched in our memory and in our hearts. My family loved him. May he have a joyous reunion with the ancestors. Rest in peace, Reggie. We love you.
Let me say a pleasant good evening to all. My name is Marilyn Moses, a close cousin or relative of the Dumas family. I am not a talker, so I wouldn't stay long. I don't want you to get fed up of me, so what I did, I bought the harmonica to change the atmosphere a little bit. What I want to say that I never knew all those things I saw in the papers, but having read it, you feel truth in what was said or written on the papers. And I say, but this man is a real intellectual. Look at his age, and people would, whether groups or whatever, government or whatever, would call on him for advice. And another thing I used to look at, he never was one-sided, never take sides. He was fair, and whatever he said or wrote on the paper, you could see was his mind, was a good heart, and this is all I have to say. However, even though we never used to communicate that often, because I said, well, you know, he's always busy, man, I'm not calling him. And one of the sisters said, you must call him, he will feel good. And then we started communicating. So this is how I accepted him. And he and the sisters, they are very receptive. They are very appreciative when you meet them and tell them who you are. So this evening, I just want to play a little tune here. The name of the tune, just a little talk with Jesus. Hey, just want to embarrass me or what? I didn't practice it, but...
Thank you. Really, really a very refreshing performance there this evening. I think you have left this, so I'm going to bring it for you in a while. Okay. So at this point, I just want to say that the persons who had been invited to speak are as follows. Just like to tell you in no particular order. Kathy Chandler via Penny Camps, Margaret Price sent a message, and Marina should read. Garth Allen on behalf of Yahweh Directors, Dr. Vanas James, Crystal Gift, Raymond Otley. Those are the names that I have, and I know that there are requests from Mr. Reginald Phillips and Mr. Vidal, but, you know, time permitting, because as I said, we have a time frame. And there is a pair of glasses that was found outside. It's on the table there, so please free to come for it. So any of those persons whose names I have called, please feel free to come up at this time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome, my brothers and sisters, is the best way to put it. First of all, I think the appropriate place to start is with condolences to the family, the immediate family of my friend, Reggie Dumas. And then condolences to the Tobago family and the national family on the loss of this great giant, this huge scholar in the Tobago space. I didn't know Reggie before 1997 as a person, but I knew him as a scholar because one of his best friends was Lloyd Best, who was my main teacher in the university. And Lloyd made me read Reggie's minority report in the Wooden Constitution Commission's report. I last spoke to Reggie the Friday before he went into intensive care in surgical. And we spoke about three things that I think I ought to bring to the attention of the people of Tobago about his work and his thinking. In occasions like these, we want to characterize the way he would live forever in our hearts and in our minds. And there are three things we spoke about while he was lying on his bed in surgical that will form the focus of a careful review I plan to do of his work with Dr. Winford James. We agreed on it already and set out a schedule to get it done. And here are the three. Reggie was extremely forceful in his articulation of the need for the country to pay proper attention to the education of our people. That was a huge beef for him. He worked closely with Professor Theodore Lewis and other colleagues, Aintu Springer and others in Trinidad on this matter of fair and equal, high-quality education for our people. And he expressed thoughts on that for the hour we spoke while he was lying in his bed in surgical. And his central point about education is that we have to pay more attention to skill-intensive training. Reggie was a consummate academic, but he understood that a major deficiency in the education system of the country is that that feature of his capabilities, which is that he was skilled in what he was doing, must be brought more forcefully and fully into the education process. So he told me over many years, it's not TVET, it's skill. Whatever you're doing law, skill. You're doing economics, skill. Whatever you're doing, and we need to bring that fully into the education system. That's the first. The second thing that we spoke about that Friday was constitution reform. While he was lying in his bed, he was reflecting with me and Ken Lewis on the critical need to force Dr. Rowley to be serious about constitution reform this time. And he told me something that you saw in his minority report, that Tobagonians need to pay careful attention to. Every time we spoke about it, but he emphasized it that Friday. He said, when you're doing anything regarding the constitution of the country, you have to go to the communities and ask the people what they want. You can't just sit down in no committee, 7-man committee, 10-man committee, and do scholarly work. That was the theme behind his minority report, and it's the last major point he made to me about constitution reform that Friday when we spoke while he was lying in bed in surgical. Tobagonians would do well to take that as advice, and the national community would do well to take that as advice, because if we don't sort out the empowerment of our communities, we're not going to have any chance to build a viable economy here in Tobago or in Trinidad and Tobago. Reggie believed that, and he made that clear in that conversation we had that Friday. The last thing that I want to draw your attention to in his work, that these will be the themes around which I will build my review of his scholarship, is this matter of reparations. Reggie would continuously remind me that Tobagonians and the nation should not forget that our foreparents are owed their pay, and we should do everything we can to collect the money they owe our foreparents. So he would tell me, you must make sure we do not forget about reparations. He took the time to bring the chairman of the Regional Reparations Committee, the CARICOM Reparations Committee, to Tobago. It was Reggie who talked to Ralph Gonzalez and brought him here to speak on this matter. And from time to time, he would pick up the phone at home, and he had this way of calling my name. He would call me and he would say, Vanos, so. And he repeatedly insisted that we should not forget about reparations. I have to tell you that just the night I found out about his death, Dr. Godfrey Martin sent us on that same listserv that Reggie joined, was on with Professor Theodore Lewis. Godfrey Martin sent us a document providing evidence that finally in Britain, £100 million have been allocated from the church community in Britain to pay some type of reparations to all the black people, Afro-descendants, damaged by the slavery experience. That's a measure of the kind of thing he thinks we should not forget to do. The last thing I want to say to you is, a couple of nights ago, the media in Trinidad called me to talk about Reggie's life the next morning. And so I took the time to go and reread his 2 books. I have to tell you, those 2 books should be required reading in every school in Tobago, Trinidad, and the Caribbean. It's a tour in
high quality sociology, richer, in my view, as a scholar, than what you would get if you read Naipaul's work. A more confident, informative, and useful interpretation of our history in the period, in the first 30 years of his life, than I got from reading The Negro in the Caribbean or from Columbus to Castro or any of Eric Williams's work. Reggie takes his place along the chain of great Tobago minds. James Begat, APT James, ANR, Doddridge, Eugenio, Ochoy, all great Tobago minds. He's the last in the chain to have departed our shores. We wish him well on his journey across the river.
Good evening, folks, and to the family of our dearly departed Reginald. From my family, my name is Christo Gift, and most of you know me as an attorney. And from my family to Mr. Dumas's family, our sincerest condolences, and as Vanas would put it, I think condolences come not only to you as his immediate family, but I think generally as Tobagonians, we all commiserate with your loss and will share in his very untimely passing. I think I wrote in the book, my first comment with regard to Reggie's passing is gone too soon. Because really and truly, in trying to be ready for this afternoon's function, I tried to go through as much as I could of what was being said about him and the man himself. And you know, as much as I tried to read the newspapers on a daily basis, I missed a lot that was said about Reggie, including the fact that I didn't know that was, I think in 2020 or 2011 or 2021, he was awarded a PhD by the University of the West Indies legal department. That one I was not aware of, and as much as we would talk, that never came up because I simply wasn't aware of him. That's quite an achievement for Reggie, for the man that was Reginald Dumas. And I think I formed the opinion after having gone through a lot of what was being written about him was that if at all there is something other than the kind words that were said about him in the many articles written about his passions, the extent of his education to me struck me as a most significant and poignant thing about the man. And I think it is one of the things, other than the way he shared himself with Tobago, I think that was one of the things that I think we will do well to pass on to the younger generation, because the importance of education is losing its influence on the younger minds in Tobago. And in the context of Tobago and where we are, education is really open, is really important. And I remember what was said about him in the papers about his experiences at Cambridge and how it opened his mind to the many vistas and opportunities that stood before him. Where we are now in Tobago, in my mind, I regret the loss of Reginald at this point in time, because it was one thing to have lost A&R Robinson when it had happened. And since then, to have lost people like Jeff Davidson and Ho Choi Charles. But if we're kind of close to not having the class and caliber of people with the significant influence on the society that we need to bring Tobagonians together and to harmonize what should be our position in this autonomy talks going forward. And I say that, and I say that because I have always been concerned about these so-called autonomy talks, even about the whole idea about the revision of the Constitution. And I will share with you a little experience that perhaps expresses why, as an attorney myself, I am particularly concerned as to the loss of somebody like Reggie and where we may be going in light of these autonomy talks coming up. For one thing, I would say to you, Tobagonians who don't live here and have come to reside in Trinidad, in some ways it's a good thing. Some of them remember where they've come from. But I would suggest to you that that's not necessarily always the case. And it may often be more the case that they are not to be depended upon as much as we think they should be to help out the Tobago position as they should be. Secondly, I would say there are changes taking place in Tobago now which you would think would have been matters long since past. For example, people will remember the days when, because one party lost an election in Tobago, certain decisions were taken that were not in Tobago's best interest. We've come a long way on from that, admittedly. But most recently, I've come to be aware of a circumstance that in some ways harkens back to those days. And let me give you this short version of it. Most of you will be aware of your need for probate services. When a family member dies, your parents, you always have to have those documents probated. That is so that you can legally link the passage of property that they may own with your current status. So, as a child, you may inherit from your mother or your father. But in order to effect that process, that's probating the documents, usually a will. And when there's no will, there's administration to be done. Now, some of you may have heard from attorneys who you use that process can take anywhere between 2, and in some instances, people are told 6, 7 years. That is not normal. That was not the case until just about 2 or 3 years ago. That is a circumstance that is a circumscribed circumstance a contrived circumstance that is being foisted upon Tobago. It doesn't have to be that way. And it would appear that the kind of rationale that I'm being hearing, the kind of rationale that I'm hearing that accounts for that is that because the head office for the administration of these matters is in Port of Spain, they don't want to look bad and there used to be San Fernando, Tobago subdivisions, and they still are in some respects. But the subdivisions may get their work done faster than the Port of Spain that has so many other areas to look after. So what we've been told now is that we've got to wait in line. So if an application goes into Port of Spain and you are number 300 on the list of applications that are going for that year at that point in time, then you just got to be number 300. You had to wait your time. Whereas when before it was being done in Tobago, or I guess San Fernando or something like that, but certainly in Tobago, you may be number 10 on the list because there are so fewer people here, so fewer applications. The fact that matters are taking so long in this area appears not to be of any particular concern by those operating the system. And in fact, when you press them, you hear from them, they're saying that there's a kind of justification for it. Well, Port of Spain can't look bad when something's happening here and it finishes quickly. And besides, it's Trinidad and Tobago and the head office is in Trinidad. So nothing is wrong with if all the matters are taken to Port of Spain and Port of Spain sees about processing them. There are more assistant registrars in the probate division now than there was, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. There are an innumerable number. The registrar's department the registrar's department once had basically 3 registrars. One who heads it and 2 assistant registrars, one for Tobago, one for San Fernando. I think the number of assistant registrars are now about 10. And they've all been introduced because of the workload that they have taken onto themselves by having Port of Spain deal only with the matter. This is a matter, I am not sure how earnestly the matter is being considered by the government of the day, but I say to you, in the context of autonomy, the whole idea of greater autonomy for Tobago, right? And the whole idea of greater autonomy for Tobago, and in the challenges that will arise, a champion like Reginald Dumas is going to be missed, and I can see for those of us who are going to be engaged in that struggle, we're going to have it hard. But I say to the family, our condolences, and we join with the many Tobagonians who empathize with you all and wish for Reggie that his journey is to heaven and he rests with our Lord. I thank you.
Good evening, all. Greetings, all. On behalf of my wife, Dr. Maritza Vidal, and my daughter, Edla, who is away at university, and who Reggie was very fond of, I wish to extend our deep and profound sympathy on the passing of a giant of a man. There are too many dwarfs around, and he was a giant of a man. I want to first of all start by saying that after Dr. Williams's passing in 1981, the only person in my humble and respectful estimation to have taken this country to where it is today was the scholar, the renowned scholar, the diplomat, the public servant who have carried this country to where it is today. Reggie Vidal was I'm saying Reggie Vidal. He called me Reggie and I called him Reggie. Whenever he calls me, he say, Reggie, this is Reggie. And we will talk as often as we could talk. He was somewhat a father figure, but he was also a teacher to me on several aspects of his educational prowess and on matters as it relates to Trinidad and Tobago. He was, in my humble and respectful opinion, the man who personified excellence in all that he did, in all spheres of his endeavor. He was the man. So I ask the question of you all here this evening. The tail of the kite has been dislodged. What is now going to happen to the kite? Can a kite fly without a tail? It can't. So, going forward, we now have to see the direction in which this country is going to head. There's no longer a Reggie Dumas. There's no longer a Reggie Dumas to guide the destiny of Trinidad and Tobago. A man who has all the presidential and every tool, as it were, in his arsenal to be anything he wanted to be in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. His excellence outshone almost all. And this is why I say, after Dr. Williams, it was Reggie Dumas who has guided this country to where it is today. And as a consequence, I have asked the government to afford to Reginald Dumas for all that he has contributed to this Twin Island state an official funeral. He is most deserving of it, and nothing should come in the way of him being afforded that type of funeral. He was not an ordinary man in the strictest sense of the word. He was a man who contributed, and there was no time when he did not have something to say on what is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. So, as I close, I would miss him. I would miss our discussions on a Sunday morning. I have been educated to a large extent by him through discussions with him. I will miss him dearly, and I think my daughter will also. So let me further extend to you, Sonia, my family's deepest and profound sympathy on the passing of a giant among dwarfs, who would always be seen as one who led this country in so many aspects of his endeavors to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago was the right place to live and the right place that he wants everyone to live comfortable. I thank you all. Thank you.
I know we could go on, but we have been going on for a while. So please refresh yourselves over there. Thank you so much for sharing this moment with us. And of course, it will be living on in the annals of the online world. But we thank you. Tobago was, I don't know, half my father. The other part was pure Reggie, and the other part was Tobago. Of course, Trinidad and Tobago is his love, but Tobago, I think, held his whole heart. So thank you so much. In the spirit of recognizing not only him who now stands as my ancestor, but also the ancestors that went before him. We will continue, I know I will continue to try to honor that in many different ways, in my own way. I'm not a diplomat. Sometimes I'm not even diplomatic, but I will strive to be the best that I can be in my own profession. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sonia. And the curtain comes down not only on Reggie's life, but the curtain comes down on this evening's event. Just want to add my word of thanks to Sonia to say thank you for being so supportive. Thank you for coming. And as we leave, we mingle a bit and we enjoy the pulsating songs of Culture Shock. So thank you so much, everyone, for all that you have done. Thank you.
two. Yeah. Sugreba kaila kayo, sugreba kaila koyo.
Amama kailo, subreba kaila kailo.
Sugreba kaila kayo, sugreba kaila koyo.
Amama kailo, subreba kaila kailo.
You shake it and roll it and show them how to do it, girl.
Amama kailo, subreba kaila kailo.
Sugreba kaila kayo, sugreba kaila koyo.
Amama kailo, subreba kaila kailo.
Sugreba kaila kayo, sugreba kaila koyo.
Amama kailo, subreba kaila kailo.
Wait for your lover, wait for your lover.
Wait for your lover.
Wait for your lover, wait for your lover. Dance to your lover, do dance to your lover. Dance to your lover, dance to your lover. Shake for your lover, do shake for your lover. Shake for your lover. Dance to your lover, dance to your lover. Dance for your lover. Shake for your lover, do shake for your lover. Show you can dance deep, oh no, you can dance deep, oh no, jole, show. Oh no, bagay show, you can dance deep, oh no, jole, show. Gade Nora, show, Nora, show, Nora, show, them might say what they show. Dance to your lover, dance to your lover. Dance to your lover, do dance to your lover. Shake for your lover, do shake for your lover. Shake for your lover, shake. Olive, singing Olive na bois, singing Olive na bois, Olive na bois. Olive na bois, Olive na bois, Olive na bois, boy, na singing Olive na bois. Atangwe, ile, wawa. Atangwe, wawa, ile, wawa. Atangwe, ile, wawa. Atangwe, wawa, atangwe, baba wa. Atangwe, wawa, ile, wawa. Atangwe iwawa ile iwawa. Yuawa, Atangwe, Yuawa, Atangwe, Yuawa, Yuawa, bye. Lend me a bond to play, lend me a bond to play. Ay, 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 to bring it, lend me a bond. Lend me a bond to play, lend me a bond to play. Ay, ay, ay. Monitors. Lend me a bond to play, lend me a bond to play. Ay, 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 ay. Bring it, lend me a Joe, bring it, lend me a bond to play. Joe, bring it, lend me a bond to play. Ay, 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 Joe, bring it, lend me a to play, lend me a bond to play. Ay, 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 ay. Don't bring it, lend me a bond to play.
Ade, 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 odi. Ade, 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 odi. Oh, ade, 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 odi. Ade, 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 odi. Ade, odi, yo. Ori, ra, 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 ori, ro, ro, ro. Ade, odi, yo. Ori, ra, 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 ori, ro, ro, ro. Yes.
Ay, ay, ay. Get them. Get them. Get them. Want somebody to limbo like we on limbo, limbo like. Want somebody to limbo like. Yeah. Give me some more in the money today. Get him. Give me. Aha. Ay-oy, uday, uday. Tell me why you don't have the feeling and party so nice. I wonder what's on your mind. Don't tell me you're going to rule my night. Tell me why you don't have the feeling and party so nice. I wonder what's on your mind. Don't tell me you're going to rule my night. Maybe you want something to take the ting-a-ling. Maybe you want something to get back out around. Maybe you want something to take the ting-a-ling. Aye, get him. Thank you.
Thank you.